Welcome to Talking to the Torso. Today I'm talking to Damien Brand. Damien is the brainchild behind Little Warrior Shields. This is a program that provides shields and fun stuff for chronically sick kids and kids with disability. I love this chat. It was really great fun. Enjoy. Hey folks, today I'm with Damien Brand, and Damien is from Little Warrior Shields. How are you, Blake?
Good, mate. Good. Thanks for having me on.
Always good to have a chat, mate. You know how we love having a yarn.
Oh, we're good at it. We're good at it.
Absolutely. What's your Friday beverage of choice?
Uh, some lolly water. It tastes just like a fruit tingle, and with a bit of vodka.
I'm just on the
And
usual dad's
and
grape
after the
juice.
week, my dad's grape juice. That's good for you. It's not sweet enough for me.
So, hey, the reason I wanted to touch base is because I guess we've known each other for a little while. Um, and with all of these interviews that I've been doing recently, I'm really interested in makers and what makes them tick, and I guess the thing behind making and what motivates people, and it gives you your mojo for the sorts of things that you do. So
Yep.
when did you start sort of making just as a thing?
I realised not that long ago that I've got two Gmail accounts that are failed creative endeavours that I had started, and yeah. Basically, I started designing T-shirts many years ago. That didn't go anywhere.
Okay.
I've written a novel, which didn't go anywhere.
Seriously?
Yeah. I've got a copy of it over there on the shelf. I decided one day I had an idea for a story, and I decided to see where that went. And about 10 years later, I had a 250,000 word piece, one
Yeah.
and a half stories worth, and I self-published a couple of copies, and they're sitting on the shelf over there. Nothing will ever come of it, but I've always had a want to try and do things, but never really able to execute it to a degree that anyone was interested in it.
Okay.
And probably, I think 7 years ago, I made a shield for my son, a foam shield out of Bunnings floor mats, EVA foam floor mats.
Oh yeah.
I have, bear with me. It looked very much like this,
Okay.
but it was 30 centimeters. It was tiny because my son was very tiny at the time. And it was a Viking style shield, and I made it for him when he was 4, and he loved it to bits. And I made myself a shield, and we both wore those shields to the local Supernova geek convention, which was great fun.
Yeah.
And had some friends with young boys. They wanted some shields, so I made them for their 2 boys. And then friend had triplet boys, so for their 8th birthday, they each got a shield. And each time I made a shield, I thought to myself, this is really fun, and
Yeah.
it's a good outlet for me. And I thought, I want to keep making, but I don't want to deal with selling. I don't want to lose my weekends to the markets or try and deal with postage and all that sort of stuff. So I thought, what if I made them and gave them away?
Yep.
And the giving away ended up being contacting a nurse contact who happened to be my cousin at one of the local hospitals here in Brisbane. And then a bunch of shields went up to the hospital to be given out to kids. And then I got a contact at Queensland Children's Hospital, and just finished last year the latest batch of 65 shields, and that takes the total number completed up to 420 shields.
Wow.
So over the 7 years, the first batch was 5, which included my son's little shield. He donated his shield into the batch to go to the hospital.
Yeah.
As long as I promised to make him a new one, which I did. And the first batch was 5, then it went to 11, 22, 44, and then around that 50 shield batch size, and then the last one was 65. And they're all scattered around me here, ready to. I've just got to do like a last check, and then most of those are gonna end up going up to Queensland Children's.
Yep.
Some will be going to Cystic Fibrosis Queensland.
Okay.
And I'll keep a bunch here to post out to people who get in contact through Instagram or through social media, and I'll just post them in the post with my 40 centimeter pizza boxes that I've got up on top there, because pizza boxes work out pretty well to send my shields in the post.
That's how I send out timber platters as well.
And you freak out the guy at the post office at the same time. When you walk in with 6 pizza boxes, he goes, "What are you posting?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, here's my phone. I'll do this stuff." And yeah, it all worked out all right. But yeah, so one thing led to another with the shields. It quite quickly got some attention, some positive, good attention, which was lovely.
Yep.
And yeah, getting the photos of the kids, which I've got on my Instagram. I don't get many photos because obviously the families are going through everything they're going through for their little warriors up in hospital.
Because these are pretty sick kids, aren't they?
In a lot of cases, yeah. A lot of the kids that I've sent them to through Instagram, their families have got their own Instagram page set up for their child, to try and build knowledge about what their kids are going through. A lot of the kids that I've posted them to have been kids that are suffering from epilepsy, really, really chronic illnesses, and yeah, it's good to be able to provide something that is, I call them cool items of distraction, because they don't do anything other than they just are, and they're a bit of fun. But if it distracts the kids from whatever they've got going on in their lives at the time, it's I think it's a nice little thing that they can have.
And if they can have a biking fight with their brother or whatever like that and just have fun.
That's exactly it. And hey, it's a warrior's shield. If it reminds them that they are a tough little warrior, and it's that little gentle reminder, then even better.
Yeah, it's that nice little message in the background, isn't it?
Yep.
To say, "Hey, dude, yep, hang in there, fight hard."
Yeah, you're fighting a good fight, and you're doing it for the good, for the good of yourself. So yeah, it's
so
good.
How long does a batch of 60 odd last up at the hospital?
They're pretty popular. But again, getting the information back from the hospital, it's not an open communication. So I will rely on my nurse contact who works at Children's to get in touch with me.
Yep.
Or I will get in touch and say, "Do you want any more shields?" The answer is always yes. But I'm also a dad with 2 young kids and a lovely wife and a mortgage and a full-time job. So it's a matter of trying to find that balance. It takes this shield, the one I made, which was the tribute to the one I made for my son originally. People always ask me, how long does it take to make a shield? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I've never made one start to finish. That was the first one I'd ever done, start to finish, and it took an hour from basic foam to finished and painted. So I can crank it out pretty quick. But
and you'd batch those now, wouldn't you?
Yeah. So a lot of it now is just batching, rough cutting, sanding, gluing. Like the ones I'm making now they're 2 layers of 6mm foam.
Yep.
So cutting the discs, contact cementing those bigger discs together, drawing on the wood grain, cutting in the wood grain, using a wood burning tool to cut in the plank lines. There's a lot of processes, but I was lucky enough late last year we did a workshop at a local game store down in Springwood, and I'd done as much prep work as I could, getting everything as ready as I could, and then transported everything in the back of my car down there, and we had 30 people in this courtyard out the front of the game store. Random people, some people that I knew through social media, through the game store. They just said, "Hey, just come and do this thing. It's going to be fun." We had such an amazing afternoon of 30 people. Most of them didn't know each other at the start, but they were having a fat old time at the end. Gluing them up, priming them, painting, cutting in the detail, painting them, and just getting them all done, adding the leather arm straps and everything. And every person at the start that hadn't done something like this with me before, because I had a couple of people that I kind of went, "Hey, I need you there. You're my ringers. You got to be,
All in the favors.
you got to be able to get stuff moving while I'm teaching everyone else." You could see the people had the deer in the headlights, like, well, I don't really know what I'm doing here.
Yep.
I'm like, don't worry, if I can do it, anyone can do it, don't worry. And it was really just a matter of showing them the process and saying, it's a toy shield for a kid, so it doesn't have to look perfect. And, if you do this, and you could see at the start they were a bit tentative, but after gluing the rim on 2 or 3 shields, they were just chatting away and having a great time and just doing it automatically, because it was just through rote. You just learn the process and then do it.
Yep.
And by the end of it, it was such. I use the term fellowship. It was a real sense of fellowship with all these people just hanging out. We were there for 4 hours, and by the time we were done, all 65 of the shields were painted.
Wow. Yeah.
And complete. So probably, I think I'd glued up that were ready for paint. I think I had probably 20 done. So 45 of those were glued up, primed and painted.
Right from scratch.
Yeah, pretty much. So it was just, had set up some stations where people could sit and cut in the wood grain or do this, and people were just happily moving from one station to the next, trying something different. And it was, by the end of it, everyone was just buzzing on this high because it was such a nice time.
Yep.
But in the end, we had 65 shields produced, ready to go to the hospital. So it was fantastic. And it's that sort of stuff too, where I know what I know. I can do this easy, but I can only produce things to the extent that I have spare time. But if I can get all of the wheels spinning, get all the plates spinning like they used to do in the circus, get all the plates spinning, and then get some people together, we can do something pretty amazing. And that was an amazing day to be part of.
Because I guess the other part of that is also, because you're doing this as a labour of love and a hobby and a bit of mucking about, that this has also got a cost involved to it. And going to the hammer shop, as my daughter calls it, the green, the green hammer shop. Well, it's actually red, but
Well, I don't actually need to go to the big green shed very much. I've got an amazing company that provides me the foam out of Melbourne.
Oh, sweet.
Called Lumen's Workshop.
Yep.
And through COVID, my foam supplier here in Brisbane, her business folded. She had an order of foam that was sitting on a boat in China when COVID hit. So over the space of the entirety of COVID, she couldn't get the stock, so she just folded the business.
Yep.
And I wanted to keep making the shields, and I went and made the call, and I'm like, is there something you can do? Can you give me a discount? I'll do fundraising, whatever. And I was so lucky that they just said, "Oh, we know who you are. We know what you're doing."
Oh, awesome. Because kids don't stop getting sick.
Yes, that's exactly it. And they were just like, "How much room have you got? We'll send you some 6mm foam." And I'm like, "Well, that's amazing." I said, "Oh, we've got a couple of rolls, 20-meter rolls of foam."
Wow.
So it's 4.5 foot tall, and it's just saying I feel blessed is a bit of an understatement. But I get the foam. I get all the leather for the arm straps given to me by an amazing family business out at Mount Cotton here in Brisbane called East Coast Leather.
Yep.
Trevor and his family, once they knew what I was doing and why I was doing it, they've been so amazing at providing me. And the specialty screws I use called Chicago screws, they order those screws specifically for me. They don't stock them. They don't stock them. They just have them at their business for when I happen to turn up, and they go, "Do you need more Chicago screws? Here you go." So they're just good people doing good by me because I'm doing something for the kids.
So it's sort of at the other end of the scale of what you were doing with all those people. they're
Yep.
still contributing, but just at the other end, at the at the initial end of it, rather
Yep.
than at the pointy end of the assembly.
And the consumables, like I use contact cement from Sikaflex. I contacted them through Instagram, went, hey, can you help? And they provided me with 6 liters of contact cement, which will last me for another year and a bit, because I went through a lot on this batch.
Yep.
But again, I've learned to ask. I've
You don't
learned there's an
ask,
art.
you don't get.
That's exactly it. And I've gotten more comfortable with the asking, and trying to be as open and honest about, this is what it is and this is why I'm doing it. Is that something you might be able to help with? And I don't go in with the expectation of getting it for free, because when it comes down to it, I can sell some stuff that I've made on the lathe or in the workshop to cover that.
Yeah.
But people they've just been super generous and super helpful, and otherwise making them would just become harder. I wouldn't say I'd stop, but it would just be more of a challenge. So it's something that I'll do until I can't do it anymore, really.
And I guess the thing for that kid who is so sick and at the end of the day may not make it through the other end, if they can just have 1 hour where they can have fun and just be another kid and just fuck about.
Yep, that's exactly it.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
They might be watching How to Train a Dragon, and they've got their Viking shield because they're watching the Viking, and they're like,
Yep.
If it takes them out of whatever frustration or pain that they might be in for a short period of time, that makes it better. Hopefully it'll make it better for a short period of time at least.
Yep. If you can't fix them, then you can give something that will at least make them have fun, and just forget about all the crap for just a little.
That's exactly it. And I want to go back. You were talking about the making and the process of making. I get great joy from making the shields. I get great joy from having a creative outlet that gives me the opportunity to make something with my hands. I was never very creative as a kid. I kind of was just going through the motions.
Yep.
But as I got older, I felt like there was something that I wanted to try. I just didn't know what it was at the time. And now I've found this. And I've gone on to make the helmets, the Viking helmets and different style helmets. I've probably done 30 or 40 helmets.
Yeah, the helmets are pretty wild.
Yeah, they're pretty cool. And again, we had a workshop here a couple of years ago, and I think we had 10 people here, and I'd spent the previous weeks gluing up the blanks. I'll grab one just quickly as I destroy the workshop. So a bit dusty. It's just a basic blank. There's 6 panels, and this is something that you would build on. You can add banding, you can add horns, you can add wings. I've done all sorts.
Yeah, I've seen some of the photos, Actually, I might add some of the photos either at the start or the end of the video. I won't put any with any of the kids in it because that's kind of not my thing. But no,
there's a bunch on there that I was super proud of how they turned out, because
I reckon they were just the best amount of fun. I mean, and I'd go to the shop in one of them just to annoy the kids.
Well, there's been a couple of events I've gone to where I've just taken them along to show off, and people have just walked around with their helmets on because they're like, "Yeah, cool." But again, the design comes from an amazing cardboard maker called Alicia. Her name's Alicia, and her Instagram's Zygote Brown. She made the helmets that I use. The template I use for my foam helmet, she uses for cardboard. Okay. She does amazing things with cardboard. And again, I purchased the design, the template, to see if that template would translate to foam.
Should do easily, hey?
Yeah, and you assume it will, but unless you really stuff it up. But again, I tried the design, and I made a couple of helmets for my kids. They loved it, and I reached out to Alicia and I said, are you okay if I use your design and your template to make them if I'm going to give them to the kids? And again, she was super, super happy for me to do that.
Yep.
So, you get the permission and then just run with it. And the
Was that the
workshop we had
same
last,
way with the shields as well, or is that your design right from the word go?
yeah, I actually watched a YouTube video. Punish Props is the YouTube page,
Okay.
YouTube channel, and I reached out to the owners of the page, and Bill Duran and Brittany, his wife, and I watched this video, and they made a Viking shield, and I just thought that looks like fun.
Yeah.
And they were talking about you can buy the foam mats from Home Depot or whatever they call it in the States. And I thought, foam mat, contact cement, leather, grabbed an old belt, cut that up, went down to the local leather shop and bought, very expensive Chicago screws to put it all together and made it. And I hacked it a bit and this cutout. This cutout on the bottom. If you look at my logo, the cutout is actually in the logo because when I was making the original for my son, I kind of stuffed up where the foam joins up, and I thought, I'm just going to hack at that with the knife and call it battle damage. And that became part of the design, part of the logo going forward. But that's what started me off. I thought, that's cool. And I had a pack of 4 mats, so I then made myself a 50 centimeter shield, which looked very sketchy. If you go a really, really deep dive in my Instagram, you'll see maybe a photo of me with the shield on my back as well. But yeah, that was the starting point. And again, I contacted Bill and Brittany and I said, hey, I'm thinking about giving the shields to sick kids. Is that something you would you be okay with me using your design as a base to go from? And they came back straight away and said, we'd be happy with that. That sounds amazing.
Yep.
So yeah, get the permission and then go with it and make it your own. It's been a very slippery slope ever since. But yeah,
That's so much fun though. And I mean, when you get some of those photos back from the hospital or from parents or whatever else, I mean, that just must be the best buzz.
It's a buzz because you see the look in these kids' eyes when they're handed the shield, and they must take the photo straight after because the kid's looking fully chuffed with the thing on their arm. And I will say there's a bunch of kids in Victoria there's a community of families where the kids have gotten epilepsy to a degree that they actually undergo a process called a hemispherectomy. Where they remove a hemisphere of the child's brain and I hope I'm not talking out of school too much, but it's an invasive process on the brain to try and limit the
seizure activity,
the seizures going forward. The amount of rehab and work, because it affects the complete movement of the body, and the kids have to relearn how to walk and move, and they lose some of the use of their arm, opposite to the hemisphere that's affected. But we've got a bunch of kids that have gotten shields, and the family's happy to send photos, and you just see the looks on their faces. It's brilliant. It's just
so good, isn't
it is. And when you're a grown up doing all the adulting stuff and you think life's pretty tough, you see the looks on these kids' faces and you think they're doing it a lot tougher than us. So it keeps the fire lit in me to want to. Unfortunately, what's next seems to be the thing that creates more issues for me than anything else. But yeah, one thing leads to another. The helmets led to the shield led to the helmets. The helmets led to the wood turn wands, which I know Dale did ask if I had any wands, but I've got them ready to go. And that then led to the
what wood?
Yeah, well, the buying of the lathe, and that led to the Dungeons and Dragons miniatures.
Oh, okay, yep.
So yeah, I'm still working on the D&D mini bundles because in that fantasy Viking world, The shields go to the hospital, and the shields are only this big.
Yep.
And they're bigger than these are 40 centimeters. The ones I started sending were 30 centimeters. But the thing I quickly found out was the hospital accommodate kids up to 18. So as much as the 17 and 18-year-old kids might want a shield, they're probably too cool to admit that they want a shield.
That's a bit naff.
A bit naff, a bit childish. A mate said to me one day, you should do D&D minis. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, but I don't know if you can see on that, the character's got my shield.
Yep.
And the base that they're standing on.
Jeez, wipe the dust off the top, mate.
So the base is also my shield. So
yep.
a mate helped me design a bunch of minis, and I've subsequently had them sent out all around Australia to get painted by people that can actually paint, not me. And I'm going to be putting together bundles of the basics that you need to play Dungeons & Dragons. Set of dice, player's handbook, which is basically the Bible that you use for playing D&D. I shouldn't say Bible. The guidebook. And then a mini and a piece of terrain to send in a box and then send them up to the hospital. So the older kids can also get something from Little Warrior Shields that might provide them with some distraction. And we're a D&D family. My kids and I play.
Yep.
And we love it. It's such a good, again, it's a distraction from the real world.
Yeah.
You can, and it's creative storytelling, and it's stealthy maths. You're rolling dice, you're adding things, you're looking at the sheet, you're working out, how to problem solve puzzles. So I've spoken to a bunch of people that have older kids or have had older kids in hospital, and they're saying that would be brilliant because the kids are just sitting in the rooms a lot of the times. If the family can't be there, they're just sitting there and they're bored.
Well, they've got just a chemo tube in, or they've got this or that or whatever else. It's just...
And they're surrounded by other kids that are similar ages, and they're like, hey, did you get one of those things? Yeah. It's a motivation for me to finalize these bundles because I've been working on it for a while. 2 or 3 kids get together. They've all got the kit. They can work out how to play. They can watch some YouTube videos. They can problem solve. One of them says, oh, I'll run a game. I'll dungeon master for you. And then they've got something, again, to distract them from whatever they've got going on. So it's extra. It's more, but it's a good positive thing to be able to, make these things and provide these things and help out where you can.
Yep. So I guess part of the thing with all of this is you're only one bloke who's doing this as effectively a hobby. And in reality, this could be a charitable operation, really.
Yep.
And the resourcing around all of that is pretty intense. And as I said, you're just running this really as a lone ranger. How do you balance that in terms of the potential need that you see versus the resources, including your own mental health resources that you can put into it?
Yep. I do run Little Warrior Shields as a not-for-profit.
Yep.
So any money that I make from fundraising goes into a separate account.
Yep.
And that money is allocated to buy anything I need to be able to keep making.
Yep.
I've done myself out of quite a lot of donations because I'm not a charity. The setup of a charity, I've got a friend that set up a children's charity, Super Tees.
Yep.
And seeing the process that he went through to get set up was a lot. And the money that you need to be able to administer a charity and maintain that charitable status and the documentation and the outlay that you need financially and probably mentally and physically.
Yeah.
There's no way I would ever want to do that. Because I have a job. I have to provide, for my family. There's no way I could do it. And that's why the resources that I provide to making are the resources that I can allocate, and that ebbs and flows.
Yep.
Last year I pretty much burnt out. Last year, early December, I was very close to pulling the pin on all of it.
Yep.
I'd done this massive batch of shields. I had a market stall that I was prepped for. Within the space of 3 weeks, I had the batch completed. I provided the batch to my son's grade 6 class where they all did their handprints.
Yep.
That's why the batch was as big as it was, because we needed a shield for each of the kids, to be fair. Whilst I was also prepping for a market stall where I had 2 tables full of goods to sell.
So that's just other stuff that you made to self-fund all of this?
Yeah. Yep. So all wood turn goodies that I'd done, and I felt like I wasn't necessarily just burning the candle at both ends, but I was just burning the candle with a torch. So by December, I was just an empty vessel. I didn't feel like I had enough to keep going forward. Also, in November, I had a skin cancer, pretty big skin cancer scare. I had 3 skin cancers cut out of my face.
Yep.
Had that to recover from, which was a bit of a shock to the system. And yeah, it was a pretty challenging end of last year. So I've been keeping my foot on the brake so far this year, and taking my time to try and recharge as best I can. And yeah, trying to be aware of my own limitations, where I've probably not been as good at that over the years.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be more conscious of it going forward.
Because you're right, in Australia, that ACNC process is actually really difficult to go through. And that's a bit of my background in terms of stuff that I navigate through, and I've been on a lot of boards of management and whatever else of ACNC, charitable status orgs.
Yep.
And it's not an easy process. And I guess part of the other issue that you've got is, with success comes expectation.
Yep.
And not only expectation from, say, the hospital, but expectation from community, and what's he going to come up with next, and how big can this get, or how can we get involved in all of that. So there become, even with offers of help, that comes with its own pressures, because you've got to deal with it, and it's only you.
And I've had people go, "What can I give you? Can I give you some money?" And I said, "No, I don't want money," because with money comes responsibility,
and obligation.
With money comes obligation. With money comes tax implications. It becomes very much a grown up thing. So in a lot of cases, I would rather sell an item to receive, I'd rather it be transactional.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
and then you're cost neutral effectively.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when I run those market stalls, it's been very much a matter of, I am selling these to help fund Little Warrior Shields.
Yep. And that's your promo for the whole thing.
So that's what it's about. So yeah, it's very resource intensive. Sometimes it's mental, sometimes it's physical. But yeah, they're
equally as much of as resource as each other.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes the mental part of it, in terms of how much have you got in the tank to be able to keep on doing it, because I guess the other part of all of this is, you never want to lose the love of what you're doing, because otherwise the whole thing will go down the toilet.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's it. It's and when when I'm dealing with the logistics of a batch of 65 shields that I've got a deadline to have them done by, I'm working my way back to, okay, I really need to be starting, or need to have this part done by this time, and it becomes a logistical exercise, which is part of the enjoyment, because it becomes a problem-solving exercise. It's not just making; you've got to troubleshoot it. It can become part of the fun. But it's also making sure you've got enough fuel in the tank to get those stages met, to be able to, I knew I had that workshop date on, the weekend coming up, whenever it was. and I knew I had to get everything done. So, I'm just going to go down to I've just got to go down to the workshop for 20 minutes, and you might have been there for 2 hours instead because you've trying to churn through stuff.
Yeah.
But again, you're focusing on that end product. You're focusing on that the delivery of the shields. But yeah, it's and I also, some would say stupidly, I'll occasionally do the book drive that I did last year, which was massive. It was 1.5 times the size of the last 2 book drives.
Yep.
Raised over $6,000 worth of books that got delivered to the hospital last month. About 6 weeks ago now. But also, I'm delivering a carload of books, colouring in books, graphic novels, all sorts of stuff. And then giving them to the nurses to deliver to give out to the kids. And I've had a couple of the parents who've received the books for their kids reach out to me and say, hey, thanks for that. Really appreciate it. But then I'm talking to Rachel, my nurse contact, and she said, yeah, look, it's really tough for the nurses as well because the kids are bored in a lot of cases at the hospital, and they're saying, have you got something for me to do? And she's telling me that the nurses are going out and buying colouring in books and colouring in pencils out of their own pocket because there's no budget for the hospital to be purchasing it.
Yeah.
And the nurses just want to just help the kids. So when I'm delivering, I think there would have been probably close to 200 colouring in books in that batch that went to the hospital. They just said that's the best thing, and they're going to get spread throughout the hospitals to all the wards, and the kids are going to have access to all these goodies. So when you hear about that too, you think you're making the life of the kids a bit easier and a bit nicer, but you're also making the lives of all of the support staff. They've got access to these things that they can hand to the kids and say, here's this thing that was donated, go and have fun with it.
I guess I've got a bit of a vested interest around all of that stuff because as a kid, I spent a lot of time in Spittle as a teenager. And and that was, I grew up in Hobart, but they couldn't do what I needed to be done in Hobart. So I'd have to go to Melbourne. And so you'd be there for a week at a time or, 2 weeks or whatever the case might be.
Yep.
And I would go out of my way to fucking annoy people just because it gave me entertainment to do. Because
your
there's
motivation.
only so many. Yeah, there's only so much drawing I could do or colouring, and nurses are busy. They're not social workers. They're not trained play therapists. They're not this, that, or that, or and effectively back in when that was the case in the late 70s, 80s or whatever, you didn't have out of school programs that you could take a shitload of schoolwork in there and just slam into that. You'd have sat there in the bed twiddling your thumbs and I remember I was in this ward and there were 2 wards or 3 wards like back to back, and they had like these glass window between the rooms.
Yeah.
And I quickly worked out that if I grabbed the remote control for our TV in our room, I could actually change the TV in the other room. But again, that was around being purely bored. So I've got a great deal of fondness, I guess, around what this is actually achieving because that level of absolute and utter boredom around that stuff when you're there through no choice of your own.
Exactly. Yeah.
You want to be everywhere else but there. And then you've got to start to create your own entertainment. I used to roll in underneath the bed and hide, and they'd have to then spend hours trying to find me.
Because you're providing yourself with the distraction because you had nothing else to distract you. So, I've had this latest book drive. I think we had probably 3 or 4 complete sets of the Harry Potter books, book 1 through 7.
Yep.
You can imagine like a 9, 10-year-old just walking up to the table where all of this stuff's laid out and going, can I take this pile of 7 books? And they're like, yeah, go for it.
That's the
you imagine like and being, being lost in your imagination while you've got all of this going on around you, you can just immerse yourself in a story. What? Why wouldn't I try and provide that if I
Exactly.
can?
Yep. Whether that's Lord of the Rings
Is,
or Harry Potter or the Narnia Chronicles or
that's
any of that
exactly
sort
it.
of fantasy stuff that's a complete escape.
Yep. And the thing this year was that blew me away was the support on Instagram, that people were just buying. I set up an Amazon wish list to do this.
Yep.
Because previously I'd done a similar book drive and ended up having to pay tax on all of the donations, which was not so much fun. So this time, setting up an Amazon wish list where people buy the book with their own money, and then that book gets sent to Little Warrior Shields, and then we would bundle them up and take them to the hospital.
That way you reduce the financial transaction out of the whole process.
Yep, and it also opens it up to people in. I had people overseas buying books.
Yeah.
Going on to Amazon Australia and buying a book and getting it sent to me and not having to send it from Finland. I had a mate, Marco, in Finland sending me some stuff, and mates in Adelaide and Tassie. And it's just because, you open the pack and you see someone's note and you see where they're from, and it's just, the generosity is amazing. Yep. But people get an opportunity to, because there were people like, oh, how can I help? And I'm like, oh, it's okay. I don't need help. It's okay. But this time I said, yeah, this time I really do need your help. And if you want to help, you can just jump on the link and buy a thing. And
yep,
a colouring in book for $2, just as good as a Lord of the Rings book for 20 or whatever. But it's
absolutely,
yep. Yeah, it's a big deal. It was a big deal to organise, but it was a good outcome when you can get it up to the hospital to the kids.
But again, there's all the coordination of all of that that's got to go along with it. And
yep.
And I know that having talked to you a little bit about that, it took a while to get that whole process out, because again, there's only one of you, and
yep,
and you have a life, and if you're having whatever issues that's happening in your life and whatever, some things have just got to slow down.
Yep. And when the tank's empty, you've got to wait for it to fill up before you can even consider doing something different or doing something whatever's next.
Yep.
And I felt very much like that towards the end of last year. And it did take a while to get everything finalized with getting the books to the hospital. But I got there. Got there in the end.
That's the main thing,
Yeah.
That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I know that part of the other stuff that you've been loving, and that's what you've been doing to self-fund a lot of this sort of stuff, is your own woodwork and mucking about. And I know that I'm not trying to make all of these interviews about roundy stuff, but I know you like your roundy.
I do. It's
how's your roundy going, by the way? We solving that issue, or we're still
contemplating the issue? It's still working. So I'm going to keep. I'll use it for a bit longer, and then I'll talk to Dr. Dale about what I need to do to fix it. But
just put your fingers in your ears and just go la 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 for a while.
It's when I put my fingers in the wallet and there's not much to come out. That's when I'm like, yeah, I'll keep using it until I can't use it. But it was probably 3 years ago. I bought a lathe. I've been wanting to wood turn for a long time, and it was one of those things that I talked to my dad about. Dad was always wanting to do wood turning, and he was a busy man. And then he retired, and I'm like, oh, it's now time to get a lathe in the shed. And he's like, oh, don't know, and he just kept putting it off. And eventually, I thought, I'm just going to buy my own. And if he wants to use it, he can come and use it. But I'll do my own thing. And I got into recycled skateboard turning because of Justin from Long Beach.
Justin Rose, me mate.
Yeah, epically, Justin is very epic. Is our boy.
He's a good man.
He's a good man, and he's the most giving of men as well, with information. And I know Dale and I've talked about gatekeeping, and the gate is not just a jar with Justin. It is off the hinges. He is so helpful. And when I said, I'm thinking about getting a lathe, and he was very encouraging. But got my hands on a couple of skateboards, watched videos on how to do stuff, eventually got the skateboards prepped and ready and glued up and on the lathe, hoping for the best. Is it going to work? And yeah, I'm probably, I'd be a couple of hundred skate bowls in at this stage, I reckon. Bowls and bottle openers and unsuccessful mallet glue ups from the other day when I had a tantrum when it wouldn't work. And it's just it's again it's that creative outlet that I didn't know I needed until I found it.
Yep.
And I've turned probably 300 or 400 battle wands. I call them battle wands because I don't want to be sued by the lovely people at Warner Brothers. But again, I've made from hardwood, finished with food grade finish, comfortable to send them up to the hospital. The nurses are all, will check them and make sure everything's okay. And sold some wands. I've sold wands to Harry Potter shop that used to be down the road, and was just, the process of learning how to turn was great for me as well, because there's a term called I'm a kinesthetic learner.
Yep.
I learn through doing. If I have to read a document, I'm not going to be as invested as if I can just get in there and troubleshoot and learn. And but also knowing that I can call on the Dales and the Justins of the world to say, hey, can you help with this? Have you got any information that might help you with that? Has made the process a lot easier.
And it's not that hard. And
well,
I guess the thing with a lot of that sort of stuff, and I still do that with other people, that I'll even have that feeling of insecurity of going, oh, could I reach out to somebody like, I don't know, Jimmy DeResta or whoever it might be, and then you've got those moments of self-doubt and whatever else, and then it's like, come on, man, all they can do is say no.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, that's okay.
Yeah.
But invariably, most people say yes, and they will invest then time. And for me to spend half an hour having a yarn to you about whatever it might be, about technique or about
Yep.
fixing lathes or just chewing the fat about how hard dealing with non-government organisations is. It's no skin off my nose. That's an easy thing, and most people are really happy to give because it makes everyone else feel good.
Yeah.
That's the human condition. Well, in most cases.
Yeah. And that's the maker community as a whole. Like a lot of what I've done with the shields has been through the maker community, liking and sharing and commenting and getting involved.
Yep.
Which has made people talk about finding your tribe. It took me until I was in my mid-40s to find my tribe.
Yep.
And now I've got a wood turning tribe, and I've got a foamsmithing tribe. I've got a couple of mates that are making the most amazing cosplay costumes. A friend, Claire, in Adelaide just won the International Cosplay Championship at C2E2 in Chicago.
Wow.
Claire is one of the most talented, amazing makers, and her partner Oren they make their living from making props, and a majority of those props that they make are from game products. So a game company that produce a game say, hey, can you make this weapon from this game that's just a computer game, but can you make it in the real world, and can you make it with resin and LEDs and smoke and all this sort of stuff? And they're like, yeah, we can do that. And then you see them make it physically in the real world. And I'm like, I know these. I watched the video of her winning the championship. I'm like, I know her. She's a friend. She's amazing. To that chick. She's got one of my mallets hanging on her wall in her workshop. I'm like,
But how's that for degrees of separation,
I watched a video of Claire in Adam Savage's workshop last week.
Oh, wow.
talking through her costume and how she did it.
Yep.
And then also Adam Savage visited their workshop late last year when he was out here for Supernova.
Okay. Yep.
And he commented on the mallet that I made and sent. There's 2 mallets that I sent to Claire and Oren, and he's like, "Oh, that mallet's had a lot of hard work because Claire does amazing leather work, so she uses it for tooling, leather tooling." Adam Savage commented on a thing that I made, and I was just like glowing from. I'm like, well, he's seen something I've done.
Fuck, mate! Straight to the pool room.
Straight to the pool room. I'm like, I need to make Adam his own mallet now and send it across.
For our American folks, you need to go and see a TV movie called The Castle.
And you won't. And for the overseas viewers, you probably won't understand most of it, but we love it. We love it to bits. But I've got wood turners like Justin in LA, and I've got friends like Claire, and I've got a mate Phil in America who's also an amazing foamsmith. We call them Foamsmiths.
Yep.
Woodworkers, metalsmiths. There's now foamsmiths. So these people that can do amazing things with EVA foam, and it makes me super proud to be able to call these people my friends. Phil, I've never met. I don't know if I'll ever get to meet Phil. He lives on the other side of the world. I've got another great mate, Marco, who lives, I think, in Finland. He's an amazing turner, and he does skateboard stuff as well. Just some super talented people, but they're people that I can just send a message to and have a chat and say, "Hey, how you going? I've got a question. You know, can you help me out?" And everyone's always happy to share their thoughts or their advice. It's brilliant.
Because recently I've had a couple of people come to me and say, "How can we help Damien out?" And it's like, slow down.
Yeah.
Don't go putting the cart in front of the horse, and don't make this bigger than what. I mean, because this whole thing with Warrior Shields could be just massive. But
yeah.
But the losing control of the reason why you do it, is everything that I agree with.
Yeah, and I've had maybe a dozen people say to me, "Oh, I can do a template for the wood grain that you do, or have you thought about getting a laser and just lasering in the wood grain?" I'm like, "Yeah, I could do that, but I actually enjoy hand drawing with a tailor's pencil the wood grain onto the shield, and hand cutting it in with a scalpel, because
and then you won't have those other 30 people sitting in that car park mucking about, carving and doing and painting and stuff. None of that would happen otherwise. If you just automated the whole process, you take that out of it. You know, the heart.
Yeah, you take the individual aspect of it as well. But the thing is, like, at the end of the workshop that we did last year, I was standing in front of these people, and I could see everyone was happy and buzzing. It was just a great. And I said, "Look, there's probably a good handful of you people at the end of today will be thinking to yourself, I reckon I could make something out of foam." And I said, all I'll say to those people is just do it, because they might make an armor piece, or they might make a shield, or they might make a sword, or they might make a helmet, and I'm like, and I said, if you do, I'm the guy you should come and talk to, because I'll give you as much information as I can. It's a gateway drug. It's a gateway drug to making.
Or that person in Seattle or Hobart or London or whoever else who wants to go and help that particular kids' hospital or whatever. Because the scope of the replicability of this sort of thing is just crazy.
Yeah,
but it's still got to be owned by communities, I think.
Yeah, and you know, there's a certain standard I need to meet. There's a certain primer that I use. It's a rubberized primer. I've had the nurses say, "Can we clean the shields?" And I said, "You go your hardest. You hit that with whatever you want. Like it's gonna take whatever you can give.
Nuke it with whatever."
Yeah. Because I need to make sure that, you know, with the wands, they're untreated hardwood, finished with a food grade finish, because you know, the kids get a bit bored.
Is that a food grade finish that we're both aware of?
I'm pretty sure it is. It's something from our good friend Scott from Custom
Yeah.
Creations.
That's what we're
Yeah,
aware of. Yep.
yeah. When he ate a spoonful of it, I think at one point in time to prove how food grade it was. Um, but
He's
it's
actually done that with a recent thing that he and I've been working on. It's like, wow, okay, you're going to be.
I've got a container of it in the shed.
Have you?
Works a treat. Yeah.
It's good gear, isn't it?
It's very good gear. I'm using it very sparingly. It's very precious.
It's
but you know,
it's available for
yeah,
to get hold of properly now.
properly. Well,
Yep.
I got the unmarked tin because it was just test it out. But you got to hold it to a certain standard, and that's why the shields that as I make them, I make sure they're all up to scratch before they go up. You don't want any of the bits and pieces falling off and becoming an issue for any of the kids. But if you can light the creative fire in someone else, because I had a bunch of people that said I've never done anything like this before, and I said by the end of today you would have done quite a bit. And if you cut the foam with a scalpel, and you can barely see the cut, but then hit it with a heat gun, those lines pop out. So you can do a lot of texturing and detail work on the foam to make it look like real wood. Mine's very, very, very stylized. But if you jump on YouTube and have a look at some of the stuff that people are doing with texturing, and it's next level. You can't tell the difference. So
Even if they don't do anything more about a shield or a wand or whatever else, if they go home and then make stuff with their kids that they haven't done before,
yep,
equally as touchy-feely. I mean, that gives you all of the love.
Yeah. It might start that process of like, oh, I might try and make something out of cardboard. I might try and make something out of, some bits and pieces around the shed, and just be a bit creative. I was never super creative as a kid, but it's a fire that's been lit in me the last probably 7 or 8 years. Very much.
So good, man. Yep. Oh, I love it. Yep.
Love it.
Absolutely. Hey, thanks very much for spending it's nearly an hour, mate.
Well, it's a good chat.
Wow,
Easy chat.
We tend to do this, don't we?
Yeah, we do. We do.
But,
hey, thanks for having me on.
Yep. But no, if people genuinely do want to help, they can reach you on Instagram at Little Warrior Shields.
At Little Warrior Shields on Instagram. Honestly, liking and sharing and commenting and doing all that algorithm-y stuff is great.
Yep.
If ever I do another book drive, it seems to be in a 3-yearly cycle, so I've still got another couple of years up my sleeve. But honestly, just get involved. Get involved in your community. Look for ways that you can help. If you want to help, you don't have to help me. If you're on the other side of the world, look for opportunities to help people that need it.
Yep.
However that looks, just, yeah.
And thus ends the gospel according to the Little Warrior.
Be excellent to each other.
All right, brother.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Dale.
Catch you, man. Thanks.
See you, mate. Thank
you. I really hope you enjoyed the chat with Damien. What an amazing bloke, hey? Well, thanks for watching. That was really good fun. If you'd like to support the channel, please think about a membership. It's just been an awesome opportunity to talk to all these wonderful people. Okie dokie. Next time.